Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Region Niners, wherever you're at. We are the hostess with the mostest. I have Todd de Voe over here, our president of IEM Region 9, and I, your show host and your secretary, Jackie Koci Tamayo. I hope you guys are doing extremely well this summer. Happy July. Happy second half of the year. And I know for a lot of people in our region, it's a busy time of the year because we're preparing for a lot of inclement weather, excessive heat, a lot of the fun stuff that we call summer.
Summer.
How are you doing, Todd?
Doing well. So I'm talking to Jackie on the phone. I'm driving up from San Diego. And I say to Jackie, well, I said, because it goes, oh, we're activating this weekend. And I said, oh, for what? I didn't think about the weather. And I go, is there a fire somewhere? She's like, no, there's no fires. I know what do, Jackie? I drive by a fire.
Yes, he said the F word and not that word, the other word.
So there's a fire burning in Southern California. So I don't know if they got on top of it or not, but yeah. So yeah, it's here, fire season.
It's here. It's fire season. You know, El Nino arrived about 6 weeks ago, so we're going to have an interesting winter. But because of that, we're going to have a very lush summer, I believe would be the word. So what's really great about today's discussion, right? We're coming up with opening talk about how we're dealing with like inclement weather, adverse weather, hot weather, fires, a lot of the summer things. But before we do, July is also very important for us because we have the call for nominations, right? There was a call for nominations for, I think it was your seat, Senior Todd de Voe, correct?
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about that? I know it passed, but what are we expecting as Region Niners, as members?
Well, first of all, I just want to tell everybody thank you. And I'm going to assume, I guess the assumption type thing, but no one ran against me. So I will be your president for another 2 years. So I guess I'm doing an okay job if people aren't running against me. That being said, it's always welcome, right? If anybody ever wants to get involved with leadership and is interested in doing so, I encourage it. And one of the things that Jackie and I are going to work on coming up here shortly is revamping the 2023-24 advisory board. And so if anybody wants to get interested and get involved with that, please kind of hang out for that. It's going to be coming more information regarding that will be sent via the emails that we push out. And I'd love to see more people involved. So one of the things that I would like to do for this incoming term is I want to see more people be involved in leadership. I want to see people being involved from our region, involved in the caucuses. I think that's critical. I'd love to have a bunch of people from Region 9 involved in all the caucuses and to report back to the board what we can do. I think that's where we can see positive change occur in the organization. And, you know, I put a letter out on July 7th, kind of talking about some of the challenges that we had this year. And I truly believe that the caucus system is there to be able to drive change, drive positive reinforcement of what we do at IEM, and really make a difference in what the emergency management profession looks like, not just IEM. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm working on here this year. Last year we stated that we were going to have or not last year, but 2 years ago, I guess now, said that we're going to have a live symposium. We did that. We're going to have another symposium coming up next year as well. And the other thing too is what we're looking at is having some events coming up at this at the IEM USA event that's happening in our region. And I'd like to make sure that everybody from Region 9 who's coming, that we're going to have a little event for us. Um, and so that's some of the stuff that we're working on. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that's going forward right now.
Definitely. And we've also had like town hall member meetings that we're trying to put together. And one of the big things that is happening, and please keep posted, is we're really pushing emergency management education, whether
Yeah.
it's mentorship through if you're a student or a returning student like I was last year. I never thought I would go back to school at the age of 42, but I did. But also trying to get your CEM. So we've been able to tag team, and Todd, it's also because of you and Hugh Daniels and others that we're making it more readily available and making it more equitable and equitable in the sense that we're going places.
Right.
So if you want your CEM and you're having a hard time finding somebody to moderate it, call us.
Doctor.
We've been doing this. We were able with a lot of group CEMs. I think we've already pushed out like 42, 43 ish people taking the test when we do these large group things. And it's because it's about the membership. It's about what the vision I think that the region is trying to push is building leaders within their towns, their communities, their volunteer groups, and even within IAM in Region 9. We've had a lot of great success, and it's because of the mentorship and the leadership that's coming from our executive committee. So that is crucial. And we also like to celebrate leadership. So we always talk about this region podcast, right, Todd? That when we built it out, it's like we're going to recognize people. We want to recognize and talk about stuff that's leading the industry. And one of the things that IAM USA does is the IAM USA Awards, right? We have the awards. The deadline is Friday, July 14th, so it's this week. You share a little bit about why we do the awards and acknowledging and recognizing leadership within our team.
Yeah, you know I always think it's kind of interesting. We look at award season, right? And what I mean by this is, I live here in in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, Orange County, and maybe the world sometimes pays attention to the the Screen Actors Guild awards or the uh, global with the Emmys and the what are the other ones, like not the Globe,
We
what's the
have the
global?
Grammys, the Emmys,
Grammys
the
is
Golden
music,
Globe,
Emmys, Golden Globe.
mhm,
That's what
Golden
Golden
Globe.
Globe and the Oscars. All right.
Top.
So I always like you see all these people they get dressed up and they get these awards for doing their job, right? For acting and being best of their
Mhm.
job. And it's okay, it's nice, whatever. And if you're into Hollywood, that's cool, or if that's what you're into. You know, when we take a look at what we do, and it's not necessarily that we do this job for awards by any means, but it's also nice to be recognized for doing stuff that's outstanding within your community, within your organization, and within the region. And so we have, if we want to take a look at the levels, right? If you want to think of us as being uh, the Emmys, I suppose, or the Golden Globe Awards or whatever, we have our regional awards. So if you have somebody who thinks it needs to be recognized within IAM region, I have the ability to give a presidential award. So if you send us a little write up, 500 word paragraph on the neighbor's dog is barking, 500 word paragraph on what the person did, I'd love to recognize them, and I can definitely do that. That's pretty easy. Then the next level up is the IAM USA Awards, which is your Emergency Manager of the Year award, which is a pretty prestigious award when it comes to IAM. And I recommend like go through that, take a look at this, and think about people who do outstanding work in the field of emergency management, who are active emergency managers, um, and nominate them. In worst case scenario, they get a recognition, just hey, you were nominated, congratulations on that, and that's great as itself, right?
Right.
And I know it's always like, oh, I didn't win, but I got recognized. Well, I think that's important, and you could put that, it's stuff that you could put onto your resume, I suppose, that you're recognized by the IM USA in your award section. It's stuff that can help you, understand that people are recognizing what you do. And Or on the other side of it too is recognize people, right? That you know that's doing good work. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, so those are what those awards are. So there's a few different ones that are out there. If you go to the award section at IEM.com, you'll see various awards that you can nominate people for. Yeah, and I say we're nominating a few people. We did last year. Gonna nominate a few people again this year. Um, and then of course with the presidential awards that we have, if you think somebody who's just done some great work specifically for the region, not necessarily outside of the region, but and that's what the presidential awards are for. So and it recognizes what you do. And you know, it's silly as it sounds, that certificate and an award coin. You know, if you take a look at the, you know, if you collect coins or whatever, those pointing to the challenge coins behind my head. You know, you get a coin, you get a shake of the hand, and you get a certificate saying, you know, good job. We're recognizing you. We know that you guys are out there doing hard work, right? You're in the EOC. We've had a rough winter. You know, we have fires happening in Arizona already, California, like I said today. You know, Nevada had some pretty significant issues. You know,
Mhm.
Hawaii, you guys are going through a volcano right now. You guys are working hard, and so let's recognize that work that's being done.
100%. And I think that's a great segue because we do need recognition for a lot of things that we do. And a lot of us are, I will say, very humble because we see it as a part of our job description. We don't think about it as, oh, I'm going to lead this charge because I want that presidential citation or I want that award. But we do it because of our drive to service, our drive to bring people closer to resiliency. And it's all because of our leadership skills. And that's what I think today's, well, I don't think, I know today's topic is about is leadership within emergency management. And we have a lot of people who speak about it. We talk about leadership within business and leadership in government and leadership in this. But I think what is really key to understand about emergency management, it is that we lead with management first, right? A lot of our job is collaboration, coordination, managing, projecting, like doing all this managerial work per se. And I wanted to use that with loose quotes, but yet we're leading charges, we're leading volunteers, we're even leading our individuals through our like campaigns of community preparedness to resiliency. So, how do we develop, foster, and empower leaders in times of crisis? And what essential elements? You know, we always talk about essential elements of information when we're responding, but what essential elements of leadership are needed to switch from managing to leading? And I
Well,
think that's the super key. And Todd,
yeah,
I know this is right up your alley, sir.
so there's two things, and we've always had this discussion. You know, what's a manager versus a leader, and can a manager be a leader, or vice versa? Well, you know, managing is managing things such as items, not people.
Right.
Managing processes such as like a project manager, managing, you know, timelines, right? That's what you manage,
Mhm.
that type of stuff. And you can have people who are technically proficient at their position.
Right.
And does that make them a good leader? And we can, you know, let's get into that for a couple seconds here. Um, no, it doesn't. And in some cases here you go, does the person who is technically proficient at their position want to be a leader? And that's the other side of that question, right? Because some people don't want to run a department or they don't want to be a leader. I worked with a guy who was a patrol officer, and he could be a leader if he wanted to be. He could have applied to be a sergeant or applied to take a corporal's position, or, you know, applied to move up. He was on the job for a long time. And I asked him one time, I was like, hey, you know, why don't you ever try to move up? And he goes, you know, man, he goes, I like coming to work, doing my job, and going home. So he wanted to do. Very proficient police officer, very good at what he did. You know, he worked motors, he did that stuff, he did
Mhm.
stuff on the, but he never wanted to be. in administration. He had no desire to be in administration. Not that he couldn't be a leader, right? So I want to
Right.
I wanted to go on this thing because in generally, I mean, when things were going down, I mean, he led, but he didn't want to be that manager, right?
Right.
So he didn't want to promote it. So we see this where people get promoted up into managerial positions, and there's this thing called the Peter Principle. I spoke about this before. It was actually written to be satire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Peter
Mm-hmm.
Principle is like the idea that you fail up, right? And you know, that being said, that you they say, oh, you promote to your highest level of incompetence, and the idea here isn't that you're incompetent so you get promoted, right? Although people can argue that, right? The idea here is that you move up to you hit the point to where you can't do the job well, and then you just stagnate there, right? And
Right.
so you see that ideas with people who they go, oh, you're great technically, you're technically sound at this, you're going to lead an organization, and then you just hate doing that job, right? So management and leadership. So you can still be a leader even though you're not a manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of go that way. And so what is leadership? Well, it's a hard nut to describe, right? Um, and there's tons of books that you can purchase and you can read, and you can, or if you know don't like to purchase books, go to the library and pull out on leadership, and they all have like different strokes on what it means to be a leader. What it means in general, and I'm going to try to generalize all of these leadership principles and philosophies and theories and stuff around into one thing is that you are putting your team into a position that they could be successful, or you're putting individuals into a position where they could be successful. Now, I know people don't necessarily all watch sports, but it's always we could turn to sports as a friend of mine says, and I hope she's listening. She says sports ball, all right, whatever, sports ball. Um, so when you're looking at sports ball, right, you take a look at the ideas of who are leaders, all right, and you get like the Michael Jordans and Larry Birds and
Mm-hmm.
basketball, right? Like you go, oh, these are great leaders. Well, they're great tacticians, all right, for sure on the court, right? Um, but were they leaders? And we can debate that later, but just the idea here. But what I've noticed is that there are some leaders on teams that aren't the superstars, and you'll see these guys and gals after they're done playing sports become coaches, right?
Right.
And you think of the guy who was behind Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills, Frank Reich, and he's a coach now, right? You look at some of the greatest football coaches around, they weren't necessarily the best baseball or football players, or baseball players for that matter. You take a look at some baseball teams, and some of the people who are leading some baseball teams right now, some of them never, not the managers necessarily, but some of like the front office guys never played baseball. They just understand how to lead people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So does leadership mean that you have to be technically savvy at the position that you're at? Well, like I said, it goes back to the idea of putting people in the right place, and then putting people first when putting your team first and making sure they're successful. And Jackie, I've told you guys this before. I've told everybody who's been part of our IEM leadership team that my job is to open windows, crash down walls, and kick in doors.
Right.
Right. So if you guys butt up against problems, my job is to go and make sure those problems go away. Right. So you can do your job. I told everybody who's done stuff, the people who are on the symposium team, people who are part of our leadership group. I said my job is to not, for you guys, if you guys run into a problem, you don't have to deal with it. Give it to me. Let me take on that problem and open the door for you so you guys can do your job. Right. So leaders are allowing your people to do their job without interference. And I'm going to refer back to one more book, and it's called Turn the Ship Around. And the idea on this book was written by L. David Marquette, Captain, United States Navy, and he went to a boat, a submarine, so they call boats. He went to a boat that he didn't know anything about because he was planning for to go onto another boat. This is a short version of this Reader's Digest version. Went to another boat that he was it's called the Santa Fe. Wasn't supposed to be on that boat. Didn't know anything about it, and gave an order that was counter to what the boat could actually do. And everybody kind of looked around, was trying to figure out how to make that occur. And afterwards, they basically the general idea is taking the boat and putting it in from third gear to fourth gear, but they didn't have a fourth gear, right?
Mhm.
And so everybody looked at him afterwards. He goes, "Why did you say, I understand the order, and how come nobody kicked back to me and said, well, this can't happen?" And they all looked at him and said, "Well, sir, we thought you knew something more about the boat than we did because there's like a lot of top secret stuff with submarines,
Mhm.
right?" And then so it dawned on him in this case here, saying, "I have to give the sailors that are in his charge the ability to not talk back, right? There's a difference between giving advice back and between talking back to your leadership,
Yeah.
right? But to be able to turn around and say, sir, that doesn't exist." And then the other side of it is instead of having a may I attitude, right? He went to a I intend to attitude.
Mhm.
And so that doesn't sound like there's a difference, but there's a huge difference, especially in the military, right? A may I says, "Jackie, may I do this?" And Jackie says yes or no. And then the other one is, "Jackie, I intend to do this." And you go, "Oh, okay." Right? Make
Yeah.
it happen. Right? And the difference is you already when you say I intend to, the person who's reporting to you has already gone through the thought process of answering the questions of saying, how do I get to there?
Yeah.
Right? And the may I portion of it goes, then I start looking to see if I can do it because I don't want to be told no.
Right.
Right? So when you have the intent, I intend to, you come to the person with the solution, with the idea, with the process to make it happen. So as leaders, when we look at this, and this is my last topic on point on leadership, is is truly no matter what leadership style you have, right? And I will arm wrestle anybody on this conversation on this. No matter what leadership style that you have, right? And unless you're a dictator, right? And then it's a whole other
Right.
story, right? But whatever leadership style that you have, dictatorship is not leadership, by the way. I just want to let you
Mm-mm.
guys know.
It's not.
But even though they put that as part of the leadership style, but if you go through authoritative, right, is another term for it, right? It is to be a successful leader, you have to be a little bit of a servant leader, right? A
Mhm.
lot, maybe a lot of a servant leader. And the other part of it too is you have to trust your team, right? And when
Right.
you trust your team is going to do so much more for you.
Right.
And that's what we should do as emergency managers, right? Is we really should take the realm of let's serve the community, right? Let's serve those whether a certain team or your staff if you have staff, if you're lucky to have staff, um, other volunteer groups that are part of your organization, right? They want to give back, so you give back to them. You serve them. You empower them, right, to be able to
Right.
make decisions and
Absolutely.
trust them that they're going to do the right thing, right?
Right.
And so that's the quick down and dirty of uh, of leadership, I think, and that's I could go on forever for this, but we'll stop it there because we only have so much minutes.
Well, I guess we're done here. Good night, everyone. No, I'm kidding. No, but I think it's very important to understand that because in emergency management, depending on our thought process, and I will say, dictatorship and authoritarianism is not leadership. It's absolutely not. It's not your way or the highway kind of attitude. And I always say there's three types of ways that you could lead, right? You could be very submissive. I The lights always do that to me. Sorry. You could be always very submissive, but it's that may I attitude, and then that can do that you're talking about, right? The like my intent is doing this, but when you're trying to be intentful or the can do, make sure it doesn't come off as arrogance or the know-it-all, because that turns off the leadership qualities that you have to something completely 100% different. And sometimes in our field, especially when we're in crisis mode, we have to still not sugarcoat, but understand that you're still working with people, and it's a working relationship. And leadership is based on how your tact, your tone, your decisiveness, like how decisive you are. And when you see a potential, like a true leader, if they see someone's potential, so if a good leader sees your potential and gives you the new opportunity to do so, and
But
that is where that trust is, right? So sometimes everything might go crazy and you might need to, and I will tell you this, in an EOC I was in, immediately in the middle of the activation, they did a text back for social media 2 seconds in. It was something that we needed. It was done. The leader, our EOC coordinator saw someone's potential, pulled that person in, and it was amazing. And it built that person's confidence tenfold. And it's because they brought the trust. They said, hey, you might not know everything, but I trust you can learn, and we're going to help you get there. And it's just that blue sky development of
let's unpack that for a second, Jackie, because I think that's where you're right, where you're on the nose. I mean, is the idea here is we're talking about two potential concepts of leadership. One is blue sky days, right? And in blue sky days, obviously you have time to be softer, gentler, work people through the problems, and then I didn't get into this too much, but the idea is allowing your team to fail fast, and fail often, right?
Mhm.
But you don't have that luxury during gray sky, right?
No, you
God forbid,
don't.
right? So you can see there's the leadership spectrum, right? You may go into that authoritative leadership style during crisis, but that's okay. And the reason why I say it's okay during crisis, it's not that you're barking. I mean, you're going to bark orders. You might swear. You might do other things under the stress, right? Because you need things done like this. You don't have time for conversation, right? But what you've done in the blue sky days is you built that trust with your team and your organization, that they know that you have that servant leader heart and soul, right?
Mhm.
And that you are looking at this. But so when the crisis occurs, if you get snappy, right, Jackie, I
Yeah.
need this now, right? You're going, okay, I understand,
Yeah.
right? And that's not how. But if you're that way during blue sky days, good luck trying to get your team to work for you, right?
100%.
So you can have that variance on the move, and so everybody has a little bit of each style of leadership in them, right? And it depends on what's going on to get to where you're at, right?
Right.
And so don't everybody listening, don't go, oh, you have to be like this soft and touchy,
No.
whatever person. No. You are right in the sense of you're doing servant leadership, and you're making sure that your team is prepared, ready to go, because you want them, especially in our field, to be ready for crisis. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and just recently we had a pretty significant crisis, fatality issue on the job, and it was the first time that this group that I worked with saw that dynamic change into that work mode, right? And we've had touches here and there, but we saw that dynamic because of the fatality, saw that
Mhm.
dynamic change into the work mode. And everybody was like, whoa, they were just like unbelievable that they were just surprised to see me go to that and take command of the entire scene and work this thing through. And they were not surprised that I could do it. That sounds terrible that way,
Right.
but they're surprised to see me go from the jolly Todd to the command and control Todd, and barking orders and taking care and getting people engaged into the civ, and getting the whole scene under control pretty quickly. Because we have to be able to go through both of those, right? Doesn't mean that you don't love and care for your team when you get to that point, but to be able to snap into that and be able to give those orders, people understand that, hey, overall in general, this person cares for us, and he's going to make sure
Mhm.
that. And I've said this before, there are people who I would follow into a burning paper bag full of glass if they told me that was the best thing for us, right? And there are other people who I wouldn't follow into an ice
Yeah.
cream store.
Right. And I think it's imperative to understand that because I always say this, it's like you have to learn how to say no with a smile, right? And it's not to be that yeah, it's not to be it's warm and fuzzy, but it's the concept of I do believe in leadership with a tone, and you could still be very strict and commanding and stuff, but there's ones, and I think this is sometimes where a lot of us forget is that when we're in the heat of the battle, our tones end up being very dismissive, then very commanding, and in a quick switch, I've heard that change leadership, the battle rhythm or the tempo, in a lot of ways because we understand when people are Snickers, hangry and need the Snickers, and you know that oh, that's Jackie. She just needs her little break. She's not really like snappy. I mean, and we know that. But I think what's really crucial in leadership is that we continue to build on the blue sky day, our leadership training, our processes, because when we do go to battle, then we can not worry about our tones, our effects, our commands, all of that, because it's well developed that people will understand if we accidentally snap or if you didn't like my decision, but you're supporting it. It's not because we don't like it, we're not getting along or we're not good leaders. It's because you're doing that muscle memory and you don't have to worry about it at the time of battle. It's like racing or, you got that mental jolt. And just really quick too, because we're wrapping at the end of the time, is that a lot of times that we foster our relationships, and I love that you are speaking about it. It is about understanding and reading and doing your research. So I'm all about doing like training and exercise like cadres or teams with that group and doing like even in the EOC, having your team and you're doing these trainings together because it builds that leadership qualities. So the people who are brand new to the organization, they're still leaders with your director on the side, and you're providing that. And I
You're
think,
hoping they're leaders.
yes, you're
Not
hoping
everybody.
that,
Not everybody comes in as a leader.
yeah,
Everybody has potential to be a leader. Whether you
and
develop them or not, that's another story.
that's the other thing. And then I think it's weird, but I think the planning, like when you're doing your planned events or you're writing your plans or annexes, your EOPs, that's a huge mechanism of leadership. And I think, and that we could go to a whole other segment in doing this, but during that time within emergency management, you're understanding, you're looking, you're seeing, you're sharing, and you could really understand people's roles and responsibilities. And then you find out skill sets that you're like, oh, I didn't know Todd had this background in, X, Y, and Z, and this is going to be an excellent part of our mass care plan,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And giving those little projects and little layouts as we develop all of our potentials as leaders is, I think, how we do lead with emergency management. I think we don't want so much always say we're leading with title, but with passion, right?
Passion.
And I always remember
Focus. Passion.
focus. Yes, Brock always said, um, "Lead with a servant's heart," and I think we always have to think about that, especially when it comes to something so sensitive and so complex at the same time as emergency management. Because we got a lot of blue sky days, but then we deal with a lot of sensitivity and complexity in our field and in our profession.
Absolutely.
So I do hope, Todd, if we could table this conversation for another segment because
Absolutely.
we're about running out of time. But if you guys want more information of the books that we spoke about today, like the Peter Principle, um, or any other leadership book suggestions, please email us or DM us at our socials at IAMR9, or email the president or us. And we will definitely give you a book club. We'll see. Oh, there's an idea. If you guys have a recommendation of a book that you want to share with membership about leadership or leadership within emergency management crisis, also email it and we'll share it in our social media outlets.
I'll put it on
More
the
important,
Substack.
huh?
You can put it. We could put it on the Substack.
Oh, and Substack. That is true. So iamr9.substack.com is where you can subscribe to our newsletters, to messaging. We had really great messaging that came out wholehearted from Todd recently about things that are going on in the region, and most importantly, become a member. So look out to everything that's coming through. We really would like to hear about you, your interest. If you want to be part of the IAM Region 9
Leadership.
committees, symposium committees, etc., please email us. Lastly, if you did not know, now you know. The conference is here in Region 9 in Long Beach, California, hometown, LA. Yay. So registration's open. Todd's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Our team's going to be there. So we would really love to see you this November. I know a crew from Santa Clara County will be there. So yeah, we're coming large. And so we would really, really want to build that blue sky relationship with you all during this time before conference. So that's the time we have for today. We're going to continue this conversation of leadership within emergency management. Thank you to our producer, the man behind the screen, Brian, for always making us just look great, even when the lights go off in the, in the middle of a podcast. Thank you, Brian. And thank you to all of you guys out there in I Am Region 9 land. Keep we keep on rocking. I Am Region 9. We truly appreciate you. Until next time.
Until next time.